I want to tell you about this new trend at work. It's called quiet quitting. So quiet quitting, it's not about quitting your job. It's about refusing to go above and beyond at work. It's about setting your workplace boundaries. Now, I pulled this clip from TikTok and I think it's a very good summary of quiet quitting. So please take a look.
Quiet quitting is essentially employee disengagement, where workers stop going above and beyond what's asked, stop completing tasks and projects without compensation, and stop overly participating in workplace hustle culture. The trend has been triggered by widespread employee burnout, the Great Resignation, and new workplace policies following the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, I want to give you my reaction. She said that this trend has been triggered by employee burnouts, the Great Resignation, and new policies at work after COVID. First, I don't believe that this is a new trend. A trend, that's something that comes and goes within a short period of time. It could be a few months, it could be a few years. Essentially, quiet quitting is employee disengagement. It's about employees not being motivated, right? So from my perspective, what we're seeing today with quiet quitting, it's nothing new. I'm going to give you some more information about quiet quitting, and then I'm going to share with you my opinions and my experience with quiet quitting. So I think most people get it. People understand the situation. When you work for a company, the company wants to maximize their profits. This involves squeezing the maximum output from the employees and paying the employees as little as possible. This is called, well, the company, they would call this capitalism. The employee, so from the employee's perspective, they ideally want to receive the maximum amount of pay and they want to do the least amount of work. From the employee's perspective, they call this fair. So I'm just keeping it real. This is how it is it not? So basically, here's the situation. Many companies are trying to milk their employees and they're trying to maximize their profits. Some employees are not okay with this and they're rebelling by quiet quitting. ResumeBuilder.com surveyed 1,000 working Americans in August. 74% of respondents said that they go above and beyond their job description. 21% of respondents said that they are quiet quitting and only doing the bare minimum amount of work. So 21%. So I hope that gives you a sense of how prevalent that this is. 22% of men and 20% of women said that they are quiet quitting. So please comment down below. Let me know what you think about this whole situation, about quiet quitting. What's your opinion? I'm going to give you my opinion in just a minute. However, I want you to know that this is what the employees are saying. These are what the quiet quitters are saying. They're saying these types of things. They're saying that they don't want to overwork themselves because it could lead to burnouts. Going above and beyond at work could compromise their mental health. Work-life balance is a priority, and your work should not define you, and you should focus your time and energy on things that you do outside of work. So let me know what you think. Now, this is where I give you my opinion. About 12 years ago, I was a quiet quitter. Let me tell you my experience and let me share with you what I found out and what I realized. So I was working a corporate job at a Fortune 100 company, so I hated that place. I was miserable. The workplace, it was a very toxic environment. It was so bad that a fist fight, it broke out in the office 2 times when I was there. And one time it involved a grandma. So I can't even make this stuff up. So the commute was awful. Management, they treated you like garbage, but you had to force a smile or you had to pretend to be interested in what they were saying. Subjective performance reviews, at the end of the day, I just dreaded just going into the office, Now, I put up with this torture because I was young and naive. I thought that if you work hard and you do what's best for the company, then the company, you can rely on them to take care of you, to reward you properly. Well, 1 year goes by, it's time for my performance review. I'm like, hopefully I get a big raise. So they call me in and they say, Brian, you're doing such a good job. You are such an asset to this company. So that's how the conversation starts. I think, wow, this conversation is off to a really good start. I like where this is headed. And then they tell me, but as you know, we're going through a recession. However, you're such an asset to this company. You're doing so good, so we're going to be generous to you. we're gonna give you a 2% raise. Congratulations, keep up the good work. When I heard that, I mean, I was in disbelief. Like, I was in shock. I was like, you guys cannot be serious. So I busted my ass off for the whole year for a lousy 2% raise. Now, I thought immediately I would have been better off if I was just slacking off, just doing the bare minimum, and I would have been okay with a 1% or a 0% raise. So anyways, from my perspective, my thought process as an employee in that situation was, all this hard work that I did for the company, going above and beyond, just being such a good employee, it didn't pay off. It wasn't worth it to me because it's a 2% raise. Like, give me a break. Anyways, immediately after that happened, I decided to quiet quits. But in my days, we just called it slacking off. So this is what I did. I told myself that I need to get out of here. I need to get out of this job. So I decided that I'm gonna start my own business. I'm gonna start my own tax practice. But I was recently out of college and I had no money. So I decided that, I tried to get clever. I decided to slack off at work. So I'm gonna slack off at work, I'm gonna collect a paycheck, and I'm gonna start building my tax practice on the side. So I decided to do the bare minimum amount of work, just enough to get by at work and not get fired. Now, you are expected to get into the office around 8:30 a.m. and people are usually leaving around 5:30 p.m. So that was the norm. So I thought, that doesn't work for me. I'm trying to build a business here. So I rolled into the office typically around 9:30 a.m., a little bit late. I'd leave a little bit early at 4:30 p.m. Now, when it was lunchtime, I mean, people would take like a 20 or 30 minute lunch break. They would go to lunch around like 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. I took the full 2 hours. I would take 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. as my lunch break. Now, this was my behavior when I decided to quiet quit. Like, I really didn't care. Like, I stopped caring. There's pros and cons to this, and we're gonna get into that. But here's the thing, I'm not lazy at all. I am not a lazy person. In fact, I'm a very hardworking person. Like, I was using my lunch breaks to work on emails with my clients or potential clients, and I would be using my lunch breaks and leaving early so that I can meet with new clients or pick up business. Now, I want to tell you this. So this is a little bit of advice, some recommendations, but this is coming from personal experience. As soon as you quiet quit, your boss or your bosses, they're gonna catch on pretty quickly. If you're gonna quiet quits, I would recommend that it be a gradual progression, so a gradual process. Like, I didn't jump into 2-hour lunch breaks immediately. Like, I had to work my way up there. You start showing up to work a little bit late, you start leaving a little bit earlier, and then you get a little bit more bold, just a little bit, it's a gradual process, little by little, bolder and bolder as time goes on. Because if you're too bold, just right from the get-go, it might be too much of a shock to management, and then you might be at risk of getting fired immediately. Now, here's what happened to me. After 1 year went by, like, I'm surprised it even dragged out that long. My bosses, they had enough. They told me, Brian, we noticed that you're away from your cube a lot. They warned me. They said that if you get 3 strikes, then you're gonna be fired, and this is your first strike. I disagreed because the way I saw it, I was getting my job done. Like, I was providing and doing what they told me to do. I just wasn't going above and beyond. Again, I didn't want to because for what? A 2% raise? It just wasn't worth it to me. So after that first strike, do you know what I decided to change? Absolutely nothing. I was quiet quitting. Okay, so I got my first strike, and a few weeks later, not even a month passes by, just a few weeks later, my boss tells me, Brian, we need to have another talk. I mean, I know what my boss is gonna say. My boss tells me that I'm getting a second strike, and my boss literally tells me that I need to get with the program. So you know what I did? I went to my cubicle, I picked up my personal items, just a handful of things. I went straight to my car, I drove off, I never came back. One of the best decisions of my life. So I don't believe in 2-week notices. I didn't even give a 2-second notice. I just left. Now, I want to say this to all the quiet quitters. This is very important for me to say this to you. And it's also very important that you hear this because this is coming, again, from my experience. I cannot promise that you're gonna have a happy outcome like I did. Like, I'm very fortunate on how things worked out for me. I just want you to know that I understand your situation. I know how you feel. I've been there. So trust me, believe me, I know. So with that being said, and you knowing where I'm coming from, I want to give you some advice. If the economy gets worse, I just want you to realize the ramifications, the realities. If the economy gets worse, you're going to be the first one on the chopping block to get fired. So I don't know how important that is to you or not. I mean, to me, that wasn't important, but maybe to you it would be, it will be. So I'm just warning you how it is. And here's another thing. If you're quiet quitting, you're not going to be the first pick to get promoted. I think you're clearly aware of that. It's going to be difficult for you to climb up the corporate ladder if that's something you're interested in. If you don't get promoted, then you're not going to get compensated as much as you could or as much as you'd like, in comparison to if you were hustling at work. But that would go against the whole quiet quitting trend, right? So I just want you to have fair warning of the consequences of quiet quitting. These are the trade-offs. These are the realities. On top of all that, on top of everything I just said, I want to tell you this because this is not something that you're going to read about, and nobody's going to tell you this. I'm telling you this out of personal experience. On top of everything I just said, you're going to experience some additional stress and anxiety, like, oh man, I wonder how upset my bosses are at me today because you're quiet quitting. Or will today be the day that I get fired? Because if you think about it, if you're busting your butt off at work, you're working hard. I know that's tiring, but at least you don't have the constant fear or the threats of getting fired. So if you find yourself in that position, lack of job security, that can be very stressful. That's something that you should be aware of. So that's fair warning if you decide to quiet quit. All I'm saying is if you're going to try quiet quitting, if you're going through it right now, just understand the consequences. And I'm telling you that I don't think that quiet quitting is a good long-term solution. If you're going to be working, whether it's for someone else or if you're going to be self-employed, you're going to want to be engaged and interested in whatever it is that you're doing. Like, I think that's very important for, your mental health and for your well-being, just generally. Now, I'm going to end with this. Perhaps the right answer is to find a new company or find a new field or even start your own business. So I'm going to tell you this. This sounds so cheesy, but it's the truth. Like, life is too short, and you don't want to be spending or wasting 40 hours a week for the majority of your life doing something that you don't want to do or that you're not interested in. You're going to be miserable. So I understand that you have responsibilities, you have financial obligations, but you also have a responsibility to yourself to not be miserable. And if you go through this like emo, quiet quitting phase for an extended period of time, you're going to be miserable. So you need to find a solution because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So I used quiet quitting as a stepping stone to realize and to achieve my solution. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for all the support. Please subscribe, and I wish you a very nice day.